everyone, I'm Abigail. This is Megan, and welcome to another Two Kids interview.
Today we are joined by award-winning author Supriya Kelkar.
Ms. Kelkar has written a bunch of picture books and middle grade novels, including Strong as Fire, Fierce as Flame, That Thing About Bollywood,
A Hisma, American as Paneer Pie, and The Cobra Song.
And on April 2nd, 2024, she has a new book coming out, And Yet You Shine.
Thank you so much for being with us today.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you for that lovely introduction. And thank you both for having me here today. I'm really honored, and it's very special to be here with both of you.
There's more representation in books now than ever before.
You and your books are part of that trend. Is that something that is important to you?
Yeah, absolutely. So when I was in third grade, our teacher had us write books and picture books, and he had them bound in hardcover. And that was my first time ever seeing an Indian name on the cover of a book in America. Because when I was growing up, there weren't any books with people who looked like me, and there weren't characters about who looked like me in TV shows or movies in America. So I grew up with no representation, and I thought that it never could be. So when I saw my name on that cover, it meant so much to me. And I decided right then and there in third grade that I was going to grow up and be an author. And when I did become an adult, it really dawned on me just how very important it is that every one of us gets a chance to see ourselves in a book and know that our story matters. So it's really important to me. And I'm so proud and grateful to be a part of this movement and this new change in children's publishing.
And I decided about now that I was going to become a graphic novelist.
Oh, I love that so much. I love that.
Was American as Paneer Pie the most personal of your books you've written?
Yeah, it definitely is. So that's the story of a young girl in a small town in Michigan where not a lot of people look like her. And she faces a lot of hate, and her voice is really silenced because of that. And when something big happens, she has to decide whether to use her voice and speak out against hate or to continue to remain silent. So when I was younger, I was bullied a lot for being Indian American. So I really didn't have that voice. And I found later that my voice took the form of my writing. So that book is really personal, and I hope that it inspires kids of all backgrounds to use their voice in whatever form it may take. You know, some people's voice might take the form of art or dancing or music or signing a petition. So I really hope that book inspires kids of all backgrounds to use their voice in whatever form it may take to stand up for things they believe in and change our world.
When you're writing about important topics like racism, is it hard to write about it and still make the story uplifting at the end?
Yeah, I think it's hard in general sort of to write about things that might have hurt you in the past. So it was hard writing American as Paneer Pie, but I'm also really glad I did. And I really tried to make sure that we got to see the joy that character has too. So she really loves puns and she loves jokes. And I wanted to make her really well-rounded so that we really empathize with her and we see who she really is, all sides of her. She's not just a victim of hate, but she's also a really funny kid and a really witty kid, and one who is a really good friend and learns to be a better friend too. So it was always in the back of my mind to make sure that it wasn't all upsetting and that there were uplifting moments and that the reader would be left feeling empowered when they finished reading the book.
Yeah, I mean, who doesn't love puns and jokes?
I agree with you.
When you've done school visits, what's the most meaningful interaction that you've had with one of the students?
That's a very good question. I haven't been asked that before. I think for me, when I see students who are sometimes moved to tears or are just so excited to meet an author who looks like them, who writes about characters who share the same background as them, that's also really special to me. But it's equally special to me when I see kids who don't share my cultural background, who tell me that they saw themselves in one of my books. So all of those experiences of being able to provide representation for kids, they stick with me. And it's what keeps me going when things are tough. It's a reminder that I need to keep doing this, and it's affecting people.
You write both picture books and books for middle grade kids. What do you like most about each?
That's a very good question. Let's see. So for picture books, I really love, it's sort of a challenge for me because middle grade novels, the ones I write can be 50,000 to 75,000 words long, but the picture books are 500 words long. So I have to really figure out how to tell a story in a shorter amount of words when I'm writing a picture book. And when I'm illustrating a book, when I'm getting to illustrate a book that I write, I also love getting to figure out how my art can tell parts of the story too, that the words aren't telling. So that's always a fun challenge. For middle grade novels, I just really love seeing how my character starts off at the beginning and seeing how they get challenged and how they grow and change and how different they are by the end of that story.
What is your process when putting a middle grade novel together?
Do you decide the end for the middle?
Or do you put it together in order?
Oh, that's a great question. So my process, I have a background in screenwriting, which is when you're writing the scripts that are used in movies. So I use some of the techniques that I learned in college when I was studying screenwriting. So when I'm writing a novel, I will often write character journals for the characters in my book. So not just the main character, but for everybody. So that helps me find their voice and figure out their hopes and their dreams and their fears. And then I outline for a really long time. So I think about the book for a long time, about who my character is at the beginning and who they will be at the end. And then I write a full outline. So I do know that full story before I start actually writing.
Can you talk about the research you have to do in writing about historical fiction?
Yeah. So I really love history. And at one point, I wanted to be a history major in college, and I didn't end up doing that. I ended up doing film and psychology instead. So what I really love about historical fiction is I will have the basic idea and I know what historical event or timeline it takes place in. But the more I research, I'm able to figure out how the story can change to fit that timeline and to fit the exact dates. So for me, historical fiction is a little trickier than just writing contemporary or realistic fiction or fantasy because the story has to make sense, but it also has to make sense historically. It has to be accurate, like your facts have to be correct. So I spend a lot of time reading old books. I go to professors at the University of Michigan in the history department, and I get their help sometimes. And I do a lot of like months and months of reading about the times. So I know how characters dressed, how they acted, what their thoughts might be. And then I piece that into the story.
Rejection is a part of most writers' stories. Can you tell us about that part of your journey?
Yes, it sure is. So I my very first published book is Ahimsa, which is right over here. And I wrote that the first draft of that in 2003. And it took over 13 years of rejections before that book sold. And it was published in 2017, 14 years later, more than 14 years later. So
That's a lot of rejection.
It was a lot of rejection. And I was writing other books the whole time that this book was being rejected. And I was revising and doing tons of drafts and trying to figure this story out. And sometimes it can be hard. Sometimes your feelings get hurt when people keep telling you no, and the story is not good enough. But I kept at it and I kept trying to figure out what is missing from this story. And I think it was a combination of children's publishing not publishing diverse stories at the time, and also just figuring out this story and making it stronger. So once I got it to that point, it published, and my career, I was able to sell a lot more books and my career took off. But even as a published author, we still get rejections. So we still will go out with projects that don't sell. And that happens to everyone. Even the most famous, super famous award-winning authors still get rejections. That's just kind of part of the business. So now years later, I just sort of remind myself that to not take it personally and to just keep trying to figure out how I can improve my writing and try again.
It might sound weird, but in August I was watching a new episode of Star Trek Strange New Worlds, and it made me think of one of your books.
Oh, really? Which book?
The episode was called Subspace Rhapsody, and all the characters are not able to stop singing and expressing themselves more in song, like they are in a musical.
Oh, so that thing about Bollywood.
Yeah.
That is so fun. I'm going to have to watch this episode. I didn't know this.
If you were recommending one Bollywood movie for someone who has never seen one, which would it be?
That's a good question. So, my kids and I like to watch the movie Lagan, which is on Netflix, I think, right now. It's from 2001, and it was nominated for an Oscar, or maybe a couple Oscars. So it's not the typical Bollywood movie that Sonali talks about in That Thing About Bollywood. So it doesn't have the bright colors and all of that, but it does have the emotions, and it has songs and dance. But it's historical, so it takes place in the 1800s. So it's just a lot less colorful than modern day ones, but my kids really love it. It's a lot of fun.
We have interviewed a number of authors who've had books banned.
This means in some parts of the country, kids don't have the same access to books that we have and may not be able to see themselves represented in books or a window into others' lives.
Can you give us your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I think my heart breaks every time a book is banned. I know I see so many of my friends' books that are so important get banned. American Espanol Pie and Bindu's Bindis have been banned in different states. So I think we're doing kids a disservice when we ban books. And I think it's wrong. And I think every child should get to see themselves in a book. And when we're banning books, we're banning them. We're kind of saying there's something wrong with you. And that's why a book about someone like you has to be banned. And I think that's the absolute incorrect message. But I'm also really inspired when I see kids like both of you and my own kids and my friends' kids speaking up against bans and really making a difference. So I want to thank you for shining a light on this topic and using your platform to speak about it. Thank you.
Luckily, we live in Illinois, and I'm pretty sure there's a law about that not to have,
yes,
that's illegal to have books banned.
Yes, I am not too far from you. I'm in Michigan, and I hope that we can pass a similar law here.
Officially, you are a Michigan treasure. Can you tell us what that meant to you?
Oh, that was such a magical moment for me. I was trying really hard not to cry when it happened, really, because it was so special and so unexpected. I remember in fourth grade in Michigan, we visit the Capitol for a field trip, the state Capitol. And so I remember being a kid there decades earlier and standing in that same room. And one of my children had just done the fourth grade trip there, and I was a chaperone on that field trip the year before. And never in my wildest imagination would I think that I would be honored on the House floor like that by our Congress. It really meant a lot to me because the representative who gave me that honor made a speech and talked about how my books help kids feel represented, and that really meant the world to me. So it was the honor of a lifetime, and I will never forget it.
What writers have had the most influence on your work?
That's a very good question. So when I was growing up, before Amazon existed, my aunt and uncle had given me the gift of a Book of the Month club because books didn't used to come in the mail like this back then. And so it was a program that gave you 3 books a month. And they gave that to me for all the holidays my family celebrates and my birthday. So for years and years and years, every month I would get 3 books. And I learned so much by having that access to books about writing. I wouldn't say any of those authors made an impact on my writing, but I think they really, in a general sense, they did. They made me better writers because I could read so much. But I think today I'm lucky to be friends with so many writers who inspire me. Christina Soontornvat's work inspires me all the time. I think she's such a magical writer, and she can write nonfiction and fiction so very well. So I love learning from her. I love seeing illustrators who are my friends that I can learn from. Picture book authors like Josh Funk, who writes such joyful books. I love learning from those. So it's just, it's an honor to just know all these people who are creating such incredible books. Janae Marks, Karina Yan Glazer, there's just Ali Standish. There's so many that I get to learn from who inspire me today.
What advice do you have for young writers?
My advice would be to, because of that background I told you where I didn't think my story mattered, it would just be to reiterate that your story does matter. And I encourage you to write it and share it with someone to me, being published just means sharing your work. So if you write your story and you share it with a friend or a sibling or a neighbor or a family member or a classmate or a teacher, I think you're a published author. And I think it's really important that we know how much our story matters and we share it with the world.
That's good advice.
But do you also have a smaller tip, something you do in your writing?
That maybe a lot of people don't?
Yeah. So I think, well, one thing is to just remember the importance of revising. So do you do lots of different drafts of your work in school, or maybe a first draft and a second draft when you're writing?
Yeah, we do rough drafts when we
Rough drafts?
Right now we're actually doing a Halloween writing unit.
Yeah.
Ooh, I love that. My one of my kids' classes is also doing that. And I love seeing what they're coming up with. That's exciting. So so just like you do a rough draft and then a final draft, is that how you usually do it? A couple drafts there? Yeah. So I would say to remember to not be attached to your words and that we can always get better. So sometimes when we peer critique or we hear feedback, we might get offended by it. But for me, every time I've received critiques of my writing and I've applied it and revised, my writing has become better. So, Ahimsa would not have been published with that first draft from 2003. It needed to be revised several times. And I know that it's always made it stronger. So I would say like that smaller piece of advice would be to not be attached to your words and know that you can always do better. And even professional authors, we do better with each draft as well.
Mine is actually called I Ain't Afraid No Ghosts.
I love it. That is so good.
Ghostbusters
I love that
reference.
Yes, that is good.
Mine, this is pretty unimportant, but since Abigail said hers, mine is called The Ghost of Devil's Grave.
Ooh, I love it.
A graveyard, Devil's Grave.
It sounds spooky and I love it.
Can you tell us what you are writing now?
Yeah. So let's see. I can actually show you. I am working on the final bits of this book. So this is a proof. So this is what a book looks like before it is printed, or before it's printed as a final book. So this is And Yet You Shine, which you had mentioned, which comes out in April, the Kohinoor Diamond Colonization and Resistance. So this is the story of a really famous diamond that you can see right there in the lotus. And this diamond was sought after around the world because it was the biggest diamond in the world at the time. And it changed hands many times across South Asia and finally ended up in the hands of a young boy who was king after his dad passed away. And the British East India Company wanted that diamond because it symbolized power. So they tricked the boy and they took the diamond and his kingdom in India and they took it back to England, but they didn't think it was shiny enough for their standards. So they cut it. And they reshaped it. So they cut it down to almost half its size. And it became a brooch for Queen Victoria. And then it became a part of this crown. Well, you can see this crown here. And to this day, it is in the Tower of London jewel house in their museum. And it's part of the crown jewels. So if someone wanted to wear the crown with it in it, who was part of the royal family, they could. So this is a story. It's the biography of this diamond, but it's also the biography of any of us, anyone who's ever felt less than or who's felt knocked down, anyone who's experienced colonization or whose family has. It's a reminder for everyone to remember their brilliance and remember their shine. So I'm really excited for that one. I am also working on my first graphic novel called Off the Cuff, which takes place in the 90s. And your parents might feel as sad as I was to find out that the 1990s are now considered historical. So it is historical fiction, but it is semi-autobiographical. So it's kind of based on my story in 1991 in Michigan. So that comes out in 2026. And in 2025, a picture book that I wrote and illustrated called Thank You Teacher comes out from Farrar, Straus and Giro and Macmillan, the same publishers of My Name, which was my picture book that came out this year. So I'm excited for that. So both and yet You Shine is my first time writing and illustrating a book that I wrote, and then Thank You Teacher will be the second time. So those are all coming out, and then I'm working on a few projects right now that I'm still in the writing phase, so they haven't sold or anything yet.
Finally, it's time for Turbo 10.
10 rapid fire questions. Are you ready?
Yes, I think so.
Number 1. What is your favorite phrase to use?
My favorite phrase to use. Oh no, I'm going to mess up the first one. I don't know. I don't think I have one. I don't know. Can I just say hi? Is that a phrase?
I guess.
You can give me a minus point for that one.
Number 2. What is one subject you'd love to learn more about?
Ooh, what is one subject I'd like to learn more about? I would love to learn more about llamas. I don't know why. I'm just intrigued. I would like to know what is the difference between an alpaca and a llama. And like someone told me that they can scare coyotes away. And I would like to know more.
Number 3. What is your go-to snack food?
Go-to snack food. Okay, well, I'd like to say carrots, but it's also, well, I like carrots and sugar snap peas as a snack, but it's probably also potato chips sometimes.
Actually, my friend Arthur is probably a rabbit.
Yeah, he likes carrots too.
Yeah.
Number 4. What was your favorite book growing up?
I really love the Babysitter's Club series. So not one book, but I just loved getting to read those and learn more.
Number 5. If you could teleport somewhere right now, where would you go?
I would go to India. I used to go there all the time when I was a kid, and I haven't been in 13 years, and I really want to go again. So beam me up.
6.
Yes.
Number 6. If you could have one superpower, what would it be?
Ooh. My superpower would be invisibility. I don't know why. I just think that's cool.
Number 7. What was your favorite cartoon as a kid?
Oh, I really love the Rescue Rangers. Yeah.
Number 8. What's your favorite rainy day activity?
Rainy day activity?
Yes.
Reading. I know that one. Yes.
Number 9. If you could have any 3 dinner guests, who'd they be?
Ooh, 3 dinner guests, who they'd be. Barack Obama. I'm gonna say a Hindi movie actor named Amir Khan, and
Fictional is allowed. Fictional
is allowed too. Ooh, now it just got very interesting. You know what? I might actually also say the bad guy from this book, but I'm not gonna say their name because I don't want to give it away. Because I think it'd be interesting. Yep. It'd be a weird dinner.
10.
Yeah.
What was the best piece of advice you were ever given?
The best piece of advice I have ever been given is to keep at it and to not give up.
You were awesome. Thank you so
You
much.
can breathe again. Thank you.
And thank you so much for spending this time with us.
We can't wait to read your future books.
Thank you both so much. This has been an absolute blast. Thank you.